I get a call from Bob, my partner. Brother, it's on. Be out in the parking lot at 3 o'clock. Don't ask any questions, just be there. We take a ride out of the city, about 45 miles, out to some rice paddies, walk down this mud dike, and then there's a boat of masked men draped with grenades and shotguns.
If you think pirates only exist these days in Pirates of the Caribbean movies, you're wrong. Pirate attacks on cruise ships, tankers, and fishing vessels worldwide are on the rise. Today, Mike Rawlins is here. He's director of our documentary, Porampo. He went on a journey to Indonesia to meet some of the pirate gangs face to face, and they let him ride along on one of their raids. Great to have you here today, Mike.
Good to be here, Greg.
I remember hearing about the American cruise ship a couple of years ago that was chased by the pirates.
Right.
I guess they got away, or they used the water cannons to shoot them off and then outran it?
Yeah, well, they used something called an LRAD, long-range audio device. Basically, it's 150 decibels of loud noise, but nobody's sure if that actually did the job or if it was coincidental, because these pirates had RPGs, but a cruise ship sits so high out of the water that it's a pretty difficult job for a pirate to assault. Yeah.
But when I heard that, I thought, wait, they're pirates these days? And I think it's something that doesn't get a lot of attention, and indeed that seemed to be the reason that you did this documentary.
Exactly.
So what is going on worldwide? You said, in fact, in recent months there were just, what, 4 incidents in the news?
Right. Last month there were 4 incidents that made the news. There was a Japanese tanker that was fired upon. These were all around Somalia. Then there was a French yacht. 30 crew members were hijacked for a $2 million ransom.
$2 million.
And actually the French commandos went into the Somali desert and got them, just like right on Entebbe. And they got the money back. They found the cash, most of it. There was a Spanish fishing trawler, $1.2 million ransom. That was paid. And there was a Japanese ship that was hijacked. Last year there were 263 reported pirate attacks worldwide. That's by the International Maritime Bureau, but estimates range from 50% to 90% underreporting of piracy. Exactly.
And that's, well, and first of all, this mostly happens off the coast of Somalia and then in the Straits of Malacca.
Well, I would say Somalia is the biggest, most cutthroat area right now. These pirates use RPGs, they use AK-47s, they have what they call a mothership and a fleet of maybe 9 speedboats. It's like an armada. And there's no navy in Somalia. It's run by a bunch of lawless warlords over there. Basically, the U.S. Navy patrols the area. The Nigerian oil field is another place that's hot and heavy. They go out and they board these tugboats and put guns on the captains, and that's all political. Straits of Malacca, which is where we went to, that's another. That's probably traditionally the heaviest area of piracy. You've also got some real Pirates of the Caribbean, which is mainly yachting and sailboats, Philippines, Bangladesh, India, whole bunch of places.
Now, you actually went on a mission to find out who these people were.
Right. I wanted to tell the story because, as you mentioned, there's relatively little coverage about it. Having been in the merchant marine for years, I would see these piracy reports every day. They come out of the Piracy Reporting Center in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And again, those are just...
There's actually a center set up that
deals
with this.
and they're my good friends. They've helped me a lot, so I don't want to diminish the operation. But let's say I went in there expecting something out of Tom Clancy, you know, dark rooms, radars, squawks, broadcast, green lighting, and unfortunately it's a few desktop computers and some telex reports, and they track. Yeah, I know. It's like out of the Stone Age, but they do a good job. It's a very limited operation, and I would get these PI-reps about crew members being robbed, beaten, and killed, and relatively little done about it. You're given what? A fire hose against an AK-47? You might as well invite them up to your room to have a drink with them. I mean, once they come on board, you do not really want to challenge them.
So people don't have guns? I mean, they're not shooting at them when they're just using the fire hoses? And
basically, it's deterrence. Stop them before they board. A lot of pirates want the element of surprise. If they are spotted, they'll quit. Some of them will. Some of the ones in Somalia don't care. They'll come right up. And so basically ships are instructed to go into the citadel mode. Dog the hatches. Just, it's like going to the mattresses, like they say, the mafia, you know, and
like
try
lock
to keep
everything up.
Exactly, lock everything up. But, you know, if they're throwing grenades at the wheelhouse windows, there's not much a ship can do. Pirates in general want ships' cash, the ship's safe. Every ship has so much cash for payroll and things. Some ships have 2 safes, you know, kind of like put 20 in your wallet, 200 in your sock if you're robbed on the street. Same thing, and the pirates know that. So when the captain opens the safe and says, and there's $5,000, Captain, real money, big money, and they'll rough them up. And as far as weapons go, traditionally, only the captain has a gun.
I see.
Maybe it's got old bullets, I don't know.
Maybe is it because of like mutiny and stuff? I don't know.
Well, it's almost as though
fights at
shipping
sea
companies
or,
are more fearful of their own crew members going ballistic, if you will, with weapons against the captain, against the chief mate over overtime disputes, than they are against armed pirates. And so there's not much uniformity in training out there.
So usually just the captain has the gun.
Usually the captain has the gun. Some government ships do carry arms lockers, and they will have some 9mm, shotguns, things like that. And part of the crew might be trained with small arms training. But a lot of ships, it's 2 in the morning. Captain, Captain. He's all groggy, of course, bed hair, you know, we're attacked, you know, and then he goes to the safe, shaky hands, trying to remember the combination. The pirates think he's just delaying, so they'll rough him up some more. So,
and people get killed.
It does happen. It does happen. And by no means is this an industry-wide cover-up, but a number of unscrupulous shipping companies, what are known as flag of convenience ships, they'll carry the flag of a nation other than the nation of ownership, you know, floating rust buckets, you know, skirting safety. A lot of those companies, I've been told, will actually stage suicides, an actual pirate murder staged to look like a suicide, so they won't have to make payouts, so they take away their liability of being sued, because we're not protecting these guys. So
so you mean their own crew? If somebody,
their own crew member.
If a pirate kills one of their crew members, they make it look like he died accidentally.
That has happened.
Or I mean, killed himself.
Yes, exactly. The traditional sign of a suicide is the crew member's shoes along the rail. They'll do something like that to, like I said, a piracy investigation could tie up a ship for days. $25,000 a day of operational expenses, higher insurance premiums. It's not in a shipping company's interest to have reports of piracy.
So the problem is underreported. The numbers that we gave are most likely not really representative of what's happening.
I've heard anywhere, as I said, between 50% and 90% underreporting.
Wow.
So,
and again, and you told me beforehand, this does not include attacks on private vessels, really, like we were talking about on the Amazon. You said those are usually classed as burglaries or robberies or something.
In the Amazon, the Caribbean, a lot of those are not termed piracy. There's a dispute over what the word piracy means, and I've seen 4 or 5 different definitions. Wikipedia says one thing, the United Nations Article 7 says something else, Random House says something else. Some people say piracy can only happen on the high seas. Other people say no, it can happen at the dock. So is it piracy or is it a burglary? So there's not much uniformity in...
what are your thoughts on that? What's...
In my opinion, I believe piracy is an assault on a vessel and or its crew while it's in operation, whether underway, at anchor, in a channel, or at the dock. I think that, in my opinion, it's all the same thing to me.
So in that case, then the figures are a lot higher than what we just said.
Oh, exactly, exactly.
A lot of things aren't even considered.
Right. Now, in 2003, there were almost 500 reports of piracy worldwide. Last year, 263, so the reports have gone down quite a bit, although last year they did go back up about 10%. What happens, piracy is kind of like the hydra. You chop it off here, it sprouts up somewhere else, depending on what areas are being patrolled. And as we've been talking about, nobody knows exactly how many incidents are happening.
We'll be right back.
It is possible, yeah.
It is?
Yeah.
Ultimately, this man and this man can see the whole picture. Or not the whole, maybe see a little picture. They can have mask. I don't need to see their face. Maybe they want to tell their story.
Their story, yeah.
Maybe Prompt would like to tell you or me their story.
And we are back with Mike Rawlins today talking about his documentary Porampo about piracy on the high seas, or I guess on shore as well, or at the dock. But at any rate, you know, one thing that comes to mind with terrorism these days, I mean, is this some form of terrorism, or is this just for private gain, or what's the motive here? Money or politics or both? Or
I would say, in my experience, there is no such thing as pirate brethren. Among the individual groups there are. It's
so these are small gangs, you mean isolated gangs?
They're isolated, some not so small. The ones in Somalia, some of the ones in Indonesia are pretty substantial, but every pirate, every group is different. As you said, some have economic motivations. They're just in it for the money. Others are in it for political reasons. Some do it to feed their village and their families. And a lot of them do not want to be lumped in with others. They may say, look, we're not criminals. We're just trying to support ourselves. We're not like that group over there in Somalia. And they don't really care about other people.
Stealing from the rich to feed the poor.
In their opinion, yes.
So you decided to go to Indonesia to meet some of these people face to face.
Well, initially that was my hope, but I thought, I don't know how this will play out. I thought I was a bit naive, probably still am, to actually try this, but I thought maybe there would be some pirate villages and I could get into that lifestyle. So we first arrived in Malaysia and we weren't sure where we were going. We knew somewhere in about a 500-mile radius, but there's piracy near Java, there'd been piracy in Singapore, but all roads led to Aceh province on the north end of Sumatra. People would say, if you want piracy, go to Aceh. That's where it's hot and heavy. So we went over there. We started working the rainforests, the fishing villages, actually boarding ships at anchor. Here we are with a camera crew, permission to go talk to your captain. They would freak out. These are a bunch of guys on an oil tanker. What is a camera crew doing here?
Sure.
And a lot of people knew about piracy, you could tell, but with shifty eyes, no, nothing. You know, I mean, there's a captain on the documentary, his back was to the camera, and he said, no, don't know nothing. And, you know, the vibe was telling me otherwise. So I knew by the word no, it was really no means yes. So. Yeah. And pretty much through my logistical coordinator, Bob Duke, he made the contacts. I don't know how he did it, but that led us inside a group of pirates. So he had
some kind of network or access?
He has the ability to get people to want to help him out. I don't know what he's telling them half the time because we were communicating. It's strange, you're in the rainforest and you're talking over cell phones, so.
But you had to pay him a certain amount of money or something? Was that
well, first of all, that's a question I get. No, there was no tit for tat payment. Now, we did help villagers. We bought one village a catch of fish for the day. We gave a generator, which we never used. I thought we might be out there for days, not able to recharge our cameras and equipment, and it was no smell of gasoline, never used it, so I said, you guys can have this. We said we would help a couple of them come to the U.S. for a visa work sponsorship, so they were hopeful at that, and we tried, but that's
some of the pirates or the villagers?
I'm thinking the villagers. Well, what's the saying I heard? In Indonesia, sometimes police wear pirate masks and sometimes pirate wear marine uniforms, so you don't always know exactly who you're dealing with.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because in the documentary, a lot of the people seem to distance themselves, so no, they didn't want to have anything to do with the police, but you suggested the police might actually be involved. Do you think that's true?
I wouldn't be surprised. I can't prove it, but police in a lot of third world countries don't make a lot of money, so
I just heard that from another guest on another show.
Is that right? Yeah. So I don't know for a fact, but I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, because who can tell the difference behind a mask?
But you got them to agree to take you out on the boat and let them tape you in action, tape them in action.
Yeah, well, before we reached this group, we came across another group that was much larger that was a political group. They had been part of the GAM, which is the Free Aceh Movement forces in a civil war against Indonesia. And supposedly they're disbanded, but they still exist. They still have these arms camps. And we were told, look, we're going to have access into a rebel camp, arms camp. This group also does piracy. Do you want to see
And they
it?
conduct raids to get the money to support
Exactly.
their anti-government
They had
activities.
supposedly hijacked a couple of UN ships after the tsunami a few years back. And are you interested? Absolutely. Fine. I get a number on a paper towel written in the boat, held up. The figure is 150 million rupiah. That's Indonesian. Now, that's a wheelbarrow of cash to the dollar. It was something like 10,000 to 1. I was pulling 2 million rupiah out of the ATM, you know, $400. I said, I figured that was about 30,000. I said, no, I'm not making a payment. Number one, I don't know how legal I was to begin with. I can't really answer that question. Are you an accomplice? I said, I'll worry about that later. But I said, I'm definitely not paying for this. So I said, no. So that was the end of that. A couple days later, this other group, the group that we rode with, basically fell into my lap. I was at the hotel with Dave Crabtree, my cinematographer. I get a call from Bob, my partner. Brother, it's on. Be out in the parking lot at 3 o'clock. What? Don't ask any questions, just be there. And if you saw that, you know the guy I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm out with Dave and his camera equipment out in the parking lot. An SUV pulls up, door swings open, get in. We go in, we take a ride out of the city about 45 minutes out to some rice paddies, walk down this mud dike, and then there's a boat of masked men draped with grenades and shotguns.
So somehow they got you to agree to go
Exactly,
along.
right. And we film for a couple of minutes. You leave now, and they pull us away. Boat takes off. Thinking, is that it? I go back to the hotel. A few hours later, be out in the parking lot again. It's dark. Fine, we're playing this game again. So the van shows up, and away we go into the night down a dark, dusty road with periodic stops. The interpreter running into a house here, a house there, headlights flashing. I don't know what's going on, driving with no lights, almost running into bicycles. We pull over. I can hear the roar of the surf in the background. Door opens up, get out. We follow the guide, and we walk over some piles of riprap. And again, there's a group of masked men. Their eyes are glowing in the dark.
Yeah,
Get
that was
in.
kind of freaky in the video. Yeah.
Off we go.
Okay, so what happened? So you went out on the boat with these people.
Yes.
Now, were you concerned, as you said earlier, I mean, well, first of all, you could have been killed, right? Because, I mean, first of all, if they hadn't done you in, I mean, in the process of the attack, if it was, I won't get too far ahead of it here, but, you know, if the people on the boat had, you could have been killed or, you know, arrested by the police or, I mean, you have to, so you're definitely taking a risk going out.
I would say maybe it's an internal defense mechanism, maybe it's adrenaline flowing, but I tried not to consider my own danger. I was tunnel visioned. I was concerned about the safety of my guys. I was concerned about our equipment. I said, God forbid that equipment gets lost. We had a couple pieces that got ripped off on the way. And I asked, what happens if the police come here? We'll hide you under the plastic. They had some plastic tarp draped over the side. Great. So I guess we're out on a joyride at 2 in the morning, just out in the ocean. And they said, yeah, we'll drop your equipment over the side too. That actually hurt me worse than if they had said, and we'll dispose of you also. Fortunately, that never came up.
But so you went out on the raid, and when you got close to the boat, though, it was actually, well, what happened?
Well, what happened, I don't really want to give too much of it away, but they had a man on, he was the point man. He was pretty rambunctious, you know. I mean, he had a bit of a Manson quality to him, I thought, and I never knew exactly where he was coming from. So his job was to look. And he pointed out his ship. And we approached the ship, and then there was another bright light off on the starboard side some distance that was a police boat, and we had engine problems, and some smoke and chaos. And the problem was I didn't want to look behind me. I sat up toward the front. There were some other Porampo behind me, the Indonesian word for pirate, and I looked behind me once, and it was a little too creepy for me, so I wasn't sure what happened. I have to say, please tune in and watch, and you'll see what happens.
So between the police and, well, needless to say, though, I mean, I guess I should say, though, that you, Well, there wasn't a successful attack on the boat, I guess. Can I say that just as far, or you weren't a part of an attack on the boat?
I was myself was not, my hands are not dirty in my opinion.
Okay,
you know.
Okay. So how do you deal with this problem? What's the answer? Having met these people and seen them face to face on this raid, what's the answer?
You're talking about piracy in general, how to combat it?
Yeah.
Well, there are a number of things. Number one, there has to be more incentive to report it. Greater guarantee of anonymity, maybe a way for crew members themselves, instead of through the company and the captain, to somehow be able to tell authorities there was a pirate attack. Maybe they would feel a little safer, because if some people talk, they'll be blacklisted out of the industry. So they're not exactly motivated. And a lot of foreign ships, these flags of convenience, they're like indentured servitude vessels. You know, they sign these long contracts, they can't go home, so they're stuck. I believe crew members should be allowed to carry weapons, provided they have training, you know, small arms training, provided they have a good plan of action and periodic drills. I think that would be a deterrent. There's something called an electronic fence, which
I'm sorry, we'll pick up on that in just a second. We'll be right back.
At least you can see here, there's some bright shore lights over there. This is secluded, but more lit up than I expected.
And we are back with Mike Rawlins today, talking about his documentary Porampo, about piracy. Okay, so you said an electronic fence may be one way?
Yes, it goes around the railing of a ship, 9,000 volts. Supposedly it won't kill people. I've never touched it.
How much is a taser, do you know? I mean, is that...
I'm not sure. I know that doesn't kill, but you can feel that. And there's LRAD I talked about, the high-powered sound device. There's something called a pain ray. Basically a microwave shooting device where it fries somebody's skin up to 300 feet. Again, non-lethal supposedly. So there's a number of technology devices that could be used. That's pretty much optional for ships, though. Unfortunately, in the shipping industry, companies won't spend money unless they really have to. And
so
then
is not a big enough problem for them to worry about, or?
Apparently not. It's kind of a mystery to me why it's not dealt with more seriously than it is. I'm not sure why. And then better unified law enforcement, because Somalia has no navy, so the French or the U.S. patrol there.
Oh, there was talk of a UN resolution that would allow foreign governments to...
Right, the French and the U.S. proposed this, which would allow basically a high seas chase of a pirate ship, you know, just like a high-speed highway chase.
Because a lot of times they'll go into national waters.
Yeah, they take off and that's the end of it. Where we went in Indonesia, there's so many rivers and places like that they can just sneak into. You never find them again. So, and just a better unified system of reporting. There are some good reporting networks like the International Maritime Bureau, RECAP in Singapore, Naval Intelligence, but they're all kind of separated. It's not easy to share information. And some countries don't like to work together. You know, they say, neighboring countries, it's not our problem, it's their problem.
Their problem.
Yep.
So it becomes everybody's problem.
That's it.
When you met the gangs, or the pirates, one of the guys in the documentary says that 13 of his friends have been killed doing this. Meeting them face to face, did it humanize them? I mean, did you know, are they still the bad guy in your opinion, or do you think, well, they're just trying to make a living like the rest of us, or how did it any effect at all on the way you view them, or did it just confirm everything you ever felt that, you know, they're hooligans out to...
I would say it did not. Maybe it humanized them, but I kept in my mind that they are still the bad guy.
They're the problem.
I'm a mariner by trade. I've been a mariner by trade, so they're harming my brethren out there. But I can understand their situation a little bit more. And Akmal, the one you referred to, talked about friends killed. He was now an ex-Porampo. He no longer did that. So maybe I had some more empathy for him. The other guys in the boat, they had masks, and I didn't really get to know them very well on a personal level, you know, other than they would have scared the wits out of me if I concentrated too much on it. So
because it looked as though at one point that they were even thinking about maybe shaking you down for some money on the boat, or trying to...
I'd have to say I'm more nervous watching the footage than I was at the time, because I was in a state of confusion. I was never sure exactly with the engine trouble, police lights, being spotted. I was never exactly sure what was going on. So I chose to be confused, I guess. I said, maybe I'd rather not know. But yeah, most of the guys were in the back. I could feel their presence the whole time, but it was mainly just the one guy in the front, and I think he was pretty much just joshing with me.
Oh,
I think.
You think?
But
well, and one thing, someone says in the documentary that, look, this problem is here and it's going to stay because there is just a huge amount of cargo going on the seas around the world today. And you said, what, something like half or what? Or I mean, most of the cargo in the world is transported by seas, and it's just
over
out
90%.
There, and it's over 90%.
Right. So it will remain a problem. The areas that get patrolled, it may die down, but there's not enough resources to keep it going. There's not enough incentive for somebody to carry the whole burden on their own shoulders to take care of it.
You said this may become a reality show.
That is our focus now. With Canna Media Productions in Toronto, we're developing a piracy reality show that we want to put on the air on cable early next year, hopefully next January. Each episode would focus on a different hotspot of the world: Somalia, Nigeria, Straits of Malacca. Same thing we did there. Get in the trenches.
Thank you very much, Mike Rawlins. The documentary is Porampo, about piracy. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.